Hello everyone, I am Joshua Muyiwa Adegbe and I am presenting this paper on behalf of Sunday Adewale Olaleye, Oluwaseun Alexander Dada, and Yazid Bunab. In this paper, we discuss the insight from Nigerian banking customer, which is a study of contextual semantic search and Twitter sentiment analysis. So this paper is divided into three parts, namely the introduction, the methodology, the results, and the final conclusion. There are hanging issues of arbitrary charges, unauthorized withdrawals, lack of update on the status of customers' complaints, unresolved complaints, and so many other complaints. Nigerian commercial bank services are underpinned by so many customers' complaints. For this reason, the Central Bank of Nigeria have intervened by having banks extending their service points, including help desks, and banks to handle all forms of consumer complaints within 2 weeks, banks to increase financial inclusion, and severe penalties applied if necessary. It is important to mention that there are other financial organizations causing disruptions to the Nigerian banks. And one of them is the fintech. The fintech is the emergence of financial technology that offers financial aids for companies in order to improve their delivery to consumers. One of the ways by which banks in Nigeria can respond is to this fintech is by creating an excellent customer engagement service via the use of social media. In Nigeria, the commercial banks are categorized on a regional, national, or international basis. Each category has a specific set of requirements for minimum capital base, adequacy ratios, and operational coverage, among others. The categorization of Nigerian commercial banks consists of the international authorization banks in Nigeria and the national authorization banks in Nigeria. And for this study, we conduct our study based on these categories. In this part, we focus on Twitter and customers' sentiment analysis. Millions of messages or tweets that are shared every day by customers. Some banks have established customer service on Twitter. Almost every tweet represents an opinion. Hence, we are able to determine how satisfied customers are with their bank service. So this leads us to the research questions of what the differences are in the banking customer sentiment of the International Authorization Group as against the National Authorization Group. In this part, we discuss the methodology in this study. So, this diagram describes the methodological framework of this study. As seen in this figure, we started by listing all the Nigerian banks, and then we categorized them into the International Authorization Banks and the National Authorization Bank. Then, using a Twitter API called the Twitter Scraper, we were able to collect tweets that customers have tweeted to their banks, and then we pre-processed the tweets, and then we were able to generate the sentiment analysis via the use of further and the sentiment strength. And lastly, we were able to determine the sentiment scores, which led us to discussing the results obtained from the study. So in this study, using the Twitter Scraper API, we were able to generate over 100,000 tweets within the time frame of 2017 and 2020. And the data parameter for generating this tweet consists of the list of Twitter user handles for each bank, which is also known as the username. And for the max tweets, we set it to infinity because we were trying to generate as many tweets as possible. If possible, generate all the tweets that have been tweeted to each bank from 2017 to 2020. After the data collection, we moved on to data pre-processing, and this is where we deleted web links from each tweet. We also replaced punctuation marks, numbers, and abbreviations. For example, words like haven't were replaced with have not. Words like hasn't were replaced with has not. And bank usernames mentioned in tweets, specifically ones that begin with @ were also deleted from this tweet. So this helps in reducing the noise in our data. So the clean data was passed through the sentiment analysis tools used in this study. And this consists of the text blob, the sentence strength, and the Voda sentiment analysis tool. This leads us to the results of the study. So from the results generated, it is discovered that the IEN group recorded the greatest number of tweets, which is 89,199 tweets for the IEN group, and the NAN recorded the lowest number of tweets, but a higher overall percentage of positive tweets than the IEN group. Most engagement per category, the First Bank of Nigeria has more Twitter engagement, which is 34,443 tweets than the rest of the bank in the IEN group. Bear in mind that the First Bank of Nigeria belongs to the international authorization banks in Nigeria. While in the case of the national authorization banks in Nigeria, the Polaris Bank has the most engagement, having 7,095 tweets. In the case of the least engagement per category, United Bank of Africa had the least engagement on Twitter, which is 2,947 tweets. And the United Bank of Africa falls under the IAN group, so it has the least engagement tweets for the IAN group. And in the case of the EcoBank, in the case of the national authorization banks in Nigeria, the EcoBank recorded only 346 tweets, which leaves it as the least engagement per category for the NAN group. In the case of the positive sentiment per category, under the IAN group, First Bank of Nigeria had the highest positive tweets with 27.67%, and for the NAN group, the Stanbic Bank had the highest positive tweets with 30.4%, which means the Stanbic Bank has the highest positive tweets compared to all other banks in Nigeria. In the case of the negative sentiments per category, the GT Bank had the highest negative tweets, which is 32.3%. And on the other hand, the Eco Bank, which is under the NAN group, had the highest negative tweets, which is 38.4%. This means that the Eco Bank has the highest negative tweets compared to all other banks in Nigeria. And lastly, the neutral sentiment per category Zenith Bank had the highest neutral tweets with 62.9% for the IEN group, while Chartered Bank had the highest neutral tweets, which is 60.9%. So, as earlier mentioned, we leveraged the use of text block, Vada sentiment analysis tool, and the senti-strength analysis tool to determine the sentimental score of the tweets. In the case of the text block sentiment analysis tool, we got 32.47% for the positive sentiments, and for the negative sentiments, the text block analysis tools gives 23.54%. On the other hand, the Vada sentiment analysis tool generated 48.62%, while the negative sentiments gave us 16.26%. And for the senti-strength, which is considered to be the best analysis tool of all three, the positive sentiments generated 26.43%, and the negative sentiment for all the tweets was 26.64%. In conclusion, it was discovered that the international authorization banks in Nigeria are more active than the banks that belong to the national authorization banks in Nigeria on Twitter. And then in this study, it was also noticed that the sentiment of Nigerian customers mostly revolve around accounts debited, money refund, mobile app, network problems, and e-transfers, delayed reply to query, transactions, and ATM cards. In the limitation of this paper, we discovered that some banks do not meet up the required tweets for sentiment analysis. Some banks in Nigeria do not also have a Twitter account, so we had to exclude this bank in this study. And the neutral polarity dominates the sentiment analysis. This is a trend in some of the extant studies. For the managerial implications, it is suggested that banks should revise their electronic customer relations strategy to fully take advantage of insights from social media sentiment analysis. Banks should also recruit skilled social media personnel to actively and strategically manage their brands on social media. And for the future research, some authors assume that neutral comments are not weighty, but this study argues that neutral comments are even more dangerous to the banking sectors than negative because it is difficult to get any insight from a silent opinion. It is challenging to know if these customers are saturated with sentiment and bottled up with negative emotions. Thank you for your attention.